Success changes most men, but for a Sigma male, it does something far more complicated. He doesn't fall apart when he fails, he falls apart when he wins. Because the moment he reaches a goal, the mission that once fueled him suddenly loses its fire. The climb is where he feels alive. The struggle is where he finds purpose. But once he arrives at the top, the silence hits. And for the first time, he starts questioning where to go next. Not because he's lost, but because the world expects him to stay still, celebrate, and fit into a definition of success that never belonged to him in the first place.
Most people think success brings clarity. For a Sigma, it often brings disorientation.
He doesn't crave applause.
He doesn't crave status. He doesn't chase validation. So when he finally achieves what he worked for, there's no external reward powerful enough to guide his next move.
He starts realizing that what drove him wasn't the achievement, it was the evolution.
And when evolution slows, his spirit does too.
That's why so many Sigma males feel stuck right after they win. They're not ungrateful.
They're not confused.
They're searching for the next mountain.
One that actually challenges them, one that actually stretches their identity, one that reignites the fire they don't show the world.
Before we go deeper, let me ask you something. Have you ever reached a goal, and instead of feeling complete, you felt strangely empty? Comment "Next Path" if you've been there, and subscribe to UltraWise for more insights into the psychology behind the Sigma mind and the silent battles no one sees. He loses the internal pressure that once fueled his discipline and momentum. A Sigma male's drive is born from tension, not the kind that comes from fear or insecurity, but the internal pressure he creates for himself. It's the quiet force that pushes him forward when no one is watching. The self-imposed standard that keeps him sharpening his mind, refining his skills, and challenging his limits. But the moment he achieves a major goal, that internal pressure dissolves. The fire that once burned with intensity suddenly flickers, not because he's lazy or unmotivated, but because the challenge that shaped his momentum has vanished. What most people call success feels like a loss of direction to him, because the struggle was never something he ran from, it was something he relied on. This shift happens subtly. During the journey, he wakes up with clarity. He knows what he's building, why he's pushing, and what mountain he's climbing. But after success, he wakes up to silence. No target pulling him forward. No pressure commanding discipline. No urgency demanding action. And for Sigma, that emptiness hits harder than failure ever did. Failure gives him something to fight. Success removes the fight altogether. Without internal pressure, he feels unanchored, disconnected from the intensity that once made him unstoppable. The external world might see him as accomplished, but internally, he feels like a warrior suddenly stripped of his battlefield. This lack of pressure also reveals a deeper truth about his psychology. He never operated for applause or validation. His motivation is born from internal conflict, the desire to outgrow his old self, the hunger to prove something only to himself, the need to transform through challenge. When the pressure fades, so does the emotional and psychological engine that powered him. He becomes restless, introspective, almost uneasy, as if a vital part of him has gone quiet. Most men fall apart under pressure. The Sigma falls apart without it. But this doesn't mean he's broken. It means he's between identities. He senses the next evolution on the horizon, but he hasn't defined it yet. And until he does, he drifts in a space where discipline feels forced and motivation feels hollow. This is the stage few people see, the silent recalibration where he dismantles the version of himself shaped by the last challenge and prepares for the version he will need for the next. Success didn't weaken him. It simply removed the internal weight he used to lift. And until he finds a new weight to carry, his momentum pauses, not because he's finished, but because he's about to begin again. He realizes the goal didn't change him as much as the journey did, leaving him craving a new challenge. A Sigma male discovers something unsettling the moment he accomplishes what he once obsessed over. The finish line doesn't transform him, the path did. The discipline, the late nights, the strategic thinking, the constant self-correction, the internal battles he fought along the way. That is where the growth happened. When he finally reaches the goal, he expects some profound shift, a moment of revelation, a feeling that everything is now different. But instead, he's met with a strange stillness. The achievement sits there quietly, offering none of the emotional electricity he felt while pursuing it. And suddenly, the truth hits. The goal was never the point. The transformation happened during the climb, not at the top. This realization creates a craving that others rarely understand. While most people celebrate success, he feels a subtle emptiness forming underneath it. Not because he's ungrateful, but because he has outgrown the version of himself who needed that victory. The challenge shaped him, sharpened him, broke him open, and rebuilt him tougher. But once the challenge disappears, that intensity dissolves, leaving him hungry for something new to push against. He thrives on evolution, not completion. The goal fulfilled something external. The journey fulfilled something internal. And now he feels the absence of that internal fire more powerfully than the satisfaction of winning. He begins to reflect, quietly, on what the journey gave him: resilience, insight, strategy, emotional mastery, and he realizes that none of those traits came from the success itself. They came from the struggle. The goal was simply a destination. It didn't sculpt him the way the process did. And this realization makes him restless. He starts scanning the horizon for the next mountain, the next test, the next demanding mission that forces him to grow again. He doesn't chase challenge out of ego. He chases it because challenge is the only environment where he feels fully alive, fully engaged, fully aligned with his nature. This craving for a new challenge is the beginning of his next evolution. While others cling to their achievements, he moves on, not because he is unsatisfied, but because he understands something they don't. Growth stops the moment he starts celebrating. So he steps away from the applause, from the comfort, from the illusion of completion. He goes back into the shadows, back into silence, back into preparation. Because the Sigma male knows that the next version of himself will not come from the goals he's already achieved. It will come from the challenges he hasn't faced yet. He feels detached because external rewards don't satisfy his internal standards. A Sigma male learns early that applause, compliments, and recognition are just surface-level echoes, noise that fades as quickly as it arrives. So when he finally reaches a milestone others would celebrate loudly, he instead experiences a quiet, unexpected detachment. The world may see the reward as proof of success, but he sees it as something incomplete, something that doesn't align with the deeper standards he holds for himself. He never did the work to impress anyone else, so the external reward fails to touch the part of him that actually matters. It's like watching people cheer for a moment he already outgrew months ago. What they call achievement, he calls a checkpoint. What they call validation, he calls distraction. This detachment isn't arrogance, it's insight. The Sigma operates on an internal scale that no one else can measure. He evaluates himself based on silent principles: the quality of his decisions, the sharpness of his instincts, the alignment of his actions with his values, the discipline he maintained when no one was watching. None of those things can be captured in a trophy, a title, or a number. So while the world celebrates what he produced, he reflects on who he became and whether the transformation meets the standards only he knows exist. When his internal expectations are higher than anything external can offer, the reward feels hollow, almost irrelevant. It confirms the accomplishment, but it doesn't confirm him. That emotional distance confuses people around him. They expect excitement, gratitude, or at least some sense of pride. Instead, he appears calm, quiet, almost uninterested. But it is not because he doesn't care. It's because the external world cannot reach the depth where his true evaluation happens. His fulfillment comes from the process, the discipline, the internal war he fought to reach the goal. The reward doesn't capture the nights he pushed through exhaustion, the doubts he dismantled, the strategies he built from scratch. Those victories are invisible, but they are the only ones that count. And this detachment becomes one of his greatest strengths. Because while others become addicted to recognition, he becomes immune to it. While others chase validation, he chases evolution. External rewards lose their power over him, making him impossible to manipulate and impossible to predict. He understands that real satisfaction comes from meeting his own standards, standards that rise as he rises. So he walks away from the applause, not because he's unimpressed, but because he's already preparing for the next internal benchmark. In his world, growth is the reward, and anything external is just background noise. He struggles when success brings comfort, because comfort dulls his instinct for growth. A Sigma male never feared hard work. He feared comfort. Not the physical kind, but the psychological comfort that whispers, "You've done enough. You can slow down now." For a man wired to evolve, comfort is the most dangerous enemy he faces. Success brings recognition, stability, and ease, things most people crave. But for him, these rewards feel like a trap disguised as achievement. The moment life softens, his edge begins to dull. The instincts that once kept him sharp start to relax. The fire that drove him through uncertainty begins to fade. And even though he has earned the right to rest, something inside him resists, knowing that the death of pressure can become the death of progress. This creates a subtle internal conflict. On the outside, life looks better than ever. He has accomplished something meaningful, reached a level others admire, and gained access to a more stable, predictable rhythm. But on the inside, he begins to feel disconnected from the version of himself that thrived under challenge. Comfort removes the friction that once forged his discipline. It removes the urgency that kept him focused. It removes the tension that shaped him into someone stronger than he was the day before. Without that adversity, he starts to sense that he is coasting, and coasting feels like decay to a Sigma. He remembers who he became through struggle, sharper, more aware, more in control of his own evolution. Success threatens that identity by offering him a safe plateau where nothing forces him to rise. And because he knows how quickly comfort can turn into stagnation, he becomes restless. He feels the pull to disrupt his own stability before it becomes a cage. This is why so many Sigma males abandon successful careers, leave comfortable relationships, or walk away from environments others would cling to. They aren't afraid of losing what they built. They're afraid of losing themselves. Comfort is dangerous for the Sigma because it sedates the instinct that made him powerful. It invites routines that slowly erode purpose. It lulls him into a state where growth becomes optional, not necessary. And that terrifies him more than failure ever did. So instead of settling into success, he seeks out new challenges, new risks, new mountains that reignite the internal pressure he depends on. To outsiders, this looks unstable or ungrateful. But to him, it's survival. Because a Sigma male knows that once comfort takes over, the journey ends, and he was never built to stay in one place for long. He hides his confusion, making others assume he's fully in control when he's actually recalibrating. A Sigma male is a master at maintaining composure, even when his inner world is shifting in ways no one else can see. After success, when direction becomes blurred and his internal compass starts searching for a new true north, he doesn't broadcast this uncertainty. He doesn't seek reassurance or share his doubts. Instead, he slips into a calm, observant state that looks like confidence to everyone around him. People assume he has a plan. They assume he's already figured out his next step. They assume his silence means clarity, when in reality, it means he's recalibrating with meticulous precision, trying to understand where he must evolve next. This hidden confusion is not weakness, it's part of his process. He knows that clarity rarely arrives in moments of noise or desperation. It comes in silence, in stillness, in the quiet examination of who he has become and who he refuses to remain. So he withdraws into himself, not to escape responsibility, but to rebuild direction. While others look to external sources for answers, he dives inward. He analyzes what success cost him, what it gave him, and what it revealed about his inner architecture. This deep introspection takes time, patience, and emotional discipline, none of which are visible from the outside. To the world, he appears steady and unshaken. Inside, he is dismantling old motivations and constructing new ones. People misread this phase completely. Some think he is cold. Others think he is indifferent. Many believe he is already planning his next achievement. But the truth is far more complex. He is redefining himself. Success removed the structure that once guided him, and now he must build a new structure from scratch. Most men panic when they feel direction slipping. A Sigma simply goes quiet. His silence is where he thinks, recalculates, experiments, deconstructs, and ultimately finds the coordinates for his next evolution.
What makes this phase powerful is that he never pretends to be lost, because deep down, he isn't. He is between missions, between identities, between versions of himself.
This liminal space feels confusing, but it is also fertile. It is the space where he gathers the threads of a new purpose, a new discipline, a new direction.
And because he protects this process behind a composed exterior, nobody sees the transformation until it's complete. By the time he reemerges with clarity, people assume he never struggled at all. They don't realize the truth. While they thought he was standing still, he was in the middle of a rebirth.
He questions whether the path he chose was truly his, or just something he mastered because he could.
Success has a way of exposing truth, especially to a Sigma male. When the applause fades and the goal is finally achieved, a question slips quietly into his mind, one he can't ignore, one that unsettles the foundation he built his identity upon. Was this the life he wanted, or simply the one he was capable of winning?
This question doesn't arrive loudly. It arrives like a shadow, stretching across his achievements, asking whether the path he walked was chosen from desire
Or chosen from ability.
A Sigma can excel at almost anything he commits to.
Discipline, focus, and independence make him capable of reaching high levels in fields others struggle to enter.
But mastery doesn't always mean alignment.
And sometimes, after success, he realizes he pursued a path not because it fulfilled him, but because it challenged him, occupied him, or distracted him from deeper truths he wasn't ready to face.
As this question grows sharper, he shifts into a more introspective state.
He looks at the skills he developed, the sacrifices he made, the identity he constructed along the way, and he begins separating what was authentic from what was survival. Did he choose this direction because it spoke to him, or because it was the silent battlefield where he knew he could win? Sigmas are used to operating outside the expectations of others, but they are not immune to drifting into paths that demand excellence rather than offer meaning. Success can become a cage disguised as accomplishment, and he feels the walls closing in when his internal drive fades, but the external praise continues. This internal conflict is subtle but powerful.
He doesn't spiral.
He analyzes.
He tests the integrity of his motivations, like an architect checking the foundation of a structure before adding floors.
And in this process, he begins to understand that the danger wasn't failure. It was succeeding at something that no longer reflects who he is becoming. This is where his detachment becomes an asset. He's not afraid to walk away from something he built if he discovers it was built on the wrong blueprint. The world might see it as self-sabotage. He sees it as self-correction.
The questioning eventually steers him toward a deeper transformation. If the path wasn't truly his, then he will forge a new one, even if it means starting from zero.
If the success wasn't aligned, then he will dismantle the illusion and rebuild with intention.
This phase is not a crisis, it's a recalibration.
It's the moment he stops living by competence and starts living by conviction.
And once he makes that shift, nothing and no one can redirect him again. He eventually finds direction again by creating new missions aligned with evolution, not achievement. A Sigma male doesn't stay lost forever.
When the noise of success fades and the internal fog begins to clear, something powerful emerges inside him, the instinct to evolve.
Not to win, not to impress, not to prove,
but to evolve.
This shift marks the beginning of his next chapter.
Instead of chasing goals for the sake of accomplishment, He begins crafting missions that challenge his identity, expand his abilities, and demand the kind of growth that success alone could never offer. These new missions are not about external rewards, they're about internal transformation. They force him to shed old layers, dismantle outdated beliefs, and step into a version of himself that is more deliberate, more aligned, and more resilient than the one who reached the previous peak. This transformation begins quietly. He withdraws, reflects, observes the parts of himself that feel stagnant or unfulfilled. He studies his own strengths, limitations, and evolving desires with the same precision he once used to study the world around him. And slowly, patterns emerge. He realizes he no longer seeks achievement, he seeks mastery. He no longer needs validation, he needs depth. He no longer wants recognition, he wants purpose.
This clarity reshapes everything.
Suddenly, direction returns, not as a single target, but as a calling. Become better than the man he was yesterday. Every mission he creates now serves that one intention.
The beauty of this phase is that it reawakens his inner fire. The discipline that once slept returns stronger.
The restlessness transforms into momentum. The confusion dissolves into clarity. He begins designing missions that feel like evolution, challenging enough to push him, meaningful enough to sustain him, personal enough to define him. These missions may look unconventional from the outside. They may involve drastic life changes, new skills, deeper solitude, or unexplored territories. But to him, they feel right. They feel alive.
They restore the sense of purpose that achievement alone could never give him.
And this is where the Sigma becomes unstoppable again. Because he's no longer climbing mountains for the view at the top. He's climbing them for who he becomes along the way. His new direction is not linear, it's transformative. It's not about arriving, it's about ascending. When he aligns his path with evolution instead of achievement, he becomes immune to stagnation, distraction, and external expectations. His mission becomes his identity, and his identity becomes his power. The world may never understand his shifts, his pivots, or his choices.
But he doesn't need them to.
His direction is no longer defined by success. It's defined by becoming the man only he knows he can be. When a Sigma male loses direction after success, the world misreads it as confusion, but it's actually the quiet beginning of his next evolution.
He isn't stuck.
He isn't fading.
He's shedding a version of himself that success outgrew.
And once he aligns with a mission that demands transformation rather than trophies, he becomes more focused, more dangerous, and more self-directed than ever before. His path isn't defined by what he's achieved, but by who he is becoming, and that journey never truly stops. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever reached a moment of success, only to realize it wasn't enough to keep your soul moving forward? If this video spoke to you, comment the word reborn so I know you watched until the end and resonate with this deeper Sigma shift. And if you want more insights into silent evolution, internal mastery, and the psychology behind the Sigma's unconventional path, subscribe to Ultra Wise and stay close. The next transformation is yours.